Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to Second Unitarian Church. My name is Curtis Smith. I'm a member of the Board of Trustees, and I use the pronouns he, him, his, and I am really impressed that you all made it here today. It is really close. Yeah, I mean, that is something. So today, we are in person at the Admiral at the Lake, the 2U Sanctuary, and continuing to meet virtually using Zoom. We ask everyone's patience as we navigate the complications of a three-part service. We're glad you are here, whichever way you are attending. If you are in the sanctuary and would benefit from hearing assistance, please, we have devices available, and please visit our tech team in the back. We are currently seeing both a national and global surge in COVID numbers. We encourage people to wear masks during the service. This practice prevents transmission of the virus and helps us center the needs of those who are most vulnerable. We are especially welcome newcomers and visitors this morning. Finding a new home, a new community, and making new connections are challenging. Please know that we are excited that you are here, and we look forward to getting to know you. If you are new to us today, please note that in the Zoom chat or mention it in person during conversation after service. If you would like, there are blue mugs you can use to signal to others that you would like them to come up to you and say hello. We also always need people in the kitchen after coffee hour, and that's a great place to see old friends and make new ones. Our worship today is led by Reverend Jason Lydon, along with Mary Helen Steinler as worship associate. Music is provided by the 2U Choir, Sophia Bondurant, Jonathan Dunmore, and Director of Music, Carl Kennedy. Our time together requires a large group of people who make possible the worship, the music, and the technical production. They are listed in the order of service, and we thank them for their ongoing service to our congregation. I do have a couple of announcements for you this morning. Next Sunday, the Jewish Fast for Gaza is hosting a gathering at 4:30 p.m. at Grace Church of Logan Square to honor Tabashat, the Jewish holiday known as the birthday of trees. Come and hear speakers and music connecting struggles of indigenous people from Palestine to Atlanta and all over the world. We will host our new member orientation beginning on Sunday, January 28th. This is a space for those who have been coming to church for some time and are considering membership in the church. The first session is led by Reverend Jason Lydon, and we would love to see you there. Save the date of February 11th. The following church, we will kick off our annual canvas as we remind ourselves every Sunday, our wealth is what we share. The budget of TU is funded by our pledges. We will have a workshop where we will imagine all the ways we can live into the ministries of our church. All are encouraged to participate. Pledge cards for the 2024-2025 church year will be distributed. And now I welcome Mary Helen to lead us in the call to worship.
Ooh, welcome all you brave souls. We are a Unitarian Universalist congregation, a community of children, youth, and adults. A people of many beliefs and traditions, bound not by the specific list of things we believe, but by the values we share. Whether you are joining us for the first time or for the 1000th time, you are welcome here. Whether you believe in God some of the time, all of the time, or none of the time, you are welcome here. Whatever your race, whomever you love, whichever way you move in the world, however much money is in your pocket, you are welcome here. I invite you, when you feel ready, to take a breath in and out. As the music begins, let us enter into our service together.
In just a moment, Marion here in the sanctuary and Harris at the Admiral will light our chalices, the symbol of our faith. We light our chalices this morning with these words from the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. One of the great liabilities of history is that all too many people fail to remain awake through great periods of social change. Every society has its protectors of the status quo and its fraternities of the indifferent who are notorious for sleeping through revolutions. But today, our very survival depends on our ability to stay awake, to adjust to new ideas, to remain vigilant, and to face the challenges of change.
Opening hymn, number 95, There Is More Love Somewhere. There is more love somewhere. There is more love somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more love somewhere. There's more hope. There is more hope somewhere. There is more hope somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more hope somewhere. There's more peace. There is more peace somewhere. There is more peace somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more peace somewhere. There is more joy. There is more joy somewhere. There is more joy somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more joy somewhere. There's more love somewhere. There is more love somewhere. There is more love somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more love somewhere.
Please remain standing and join me in reciting our covenant. The words are on your screen. We covenant to build a community that challenges us to grow and empowers us to honor the truth within ourselves. We will be generous with our gifts and honest in our communication, holding faithful to a love that embraces both diversity and conflict. Called by our living traditions, we will nurture spirituality within a vision of the eternal, living out our inner convictions through struggles for justice and acts of compassion.
Now please join me in singing our congregational hymn, number 123, Spirit of Life. Sorry, that was the key of the last song. There it is. Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
You can be seated. I want to invite those who are young in age or young in spirit to come join me on the chancel. You're great. Come on, Chauncey. You're good. You're good. Young in spirit is welcome. Good morning. Good morning. It's so nice to see you on this very, very, very cold day. And it's nice to be in church together. So tomorrow is a holiday. Does anyone know what holiday tomorrow is? Martin Luther King Day. So what do we know about this pretty amazing man named Martin Luther King Jr.? What do we know about him? Marion. He led marches and gave a very famous speech called I Have a Dream. What was his dream about? Do you know? Freedom. Yeah, absolutely. What else? What else do we know about this pretty amazing man? What? What were you thinking? You're not sure, Lumi? So one of the things that I think is pretty amazing that this man did was he helped organize something that was called the Montgomery Bus Boycott. Do you know what a boycott is? Marianne. Refuse to do something until it is right. Absolutely. And the Montgomery bus boycott was happening because the buses at that time were segregated based on race. The people who were white got to sit in the front of the bus, and people who were black were forced to sit in the back of the bus. And there was also at times a difference in how much people were supposed to pay for the bus based on where they lived. And so there was an organized boycott to say, we are not going to ride these buses until it is fair for everybody, until everybody gets to ride the buses in a way that is safe and equitable, meaning equal, attending to the differences that people are experiencing, and making sure that everybody had fair access to the buses. And this happened in Montgomery, Alabama. Anyone ever heard of Alabama? Nope. Good choice. No, I'm sorry. We love the South. We love the South and all of this country. Absolutely. So Alabama's in the southern part of our country, and the South had particularly bad laws that were making it so that segregation was legal and allowed. We still today have to figure out how we deal with segregation that's not legal anymore, but still is happening. That we see these differences in our own city, where we have segregation in our own city, where there are places in our city where it seems as though Black folks are allowed to stay in one section, Latinx folks are allowed to stay in another section, Asian Pacific Islander folks in another section, and white folks in another section. And we have a lot of work to do because racism isn't over. That the work that Dr. King did was so important, and getting rid of segregation, legal segregation, was so important, and yet there's still more work to be done. And that is our responsibility today, to make sure that we live into this history, this story of Dr. King. We remember the big speech he had about justice and making things more equal, and that we have the responsibility to take up the ideas that he had, and then we go about creating the world that he dreamed of. So my hope is that we can keep doing that work together, and I know that you are already doing it, and my hope is that our church helps us do that work together. So I hope that you have wonderful classes today. Please join me in singing our children out. Now in peace, go now in peace. We got a little round going. Ooh. So each year, we all make a commitment, a pledge to support the ministry of this, our beloved community. In addition to this pledge that we make every year, we also take a collection at church on Sundays so that we can share with those who are doing justice work well beyond our walls. In just a moment, you will see a phone number on your screen, and you can also find it in your order of service so that you can text and make your contributions. We will eventually pass the plate around again, but the time for that is not today. For the month of January, you've already heard a little bit last week from Jung that we will be sharing our plate with the Liberation Library. What I know about the Liberation Library is that they make books available to young people who are incarcerated in our state, and that books are often a lifeline for people who are locked up and doing time, and that books are a way of escaping and getting just even a moment of feeling connected to the world beyond the concrete and steel that keeps people locked away in cages. And so we are taking our collection this month to support them in the work that they do. Mary Helen, would you lead us in our offertory words?
Now I invite you to join me in reading our offertory words. The words are printed in your order of service and are also going to be on the screen. Now it is. This church is a community of ourselves. Its energy and resources are our energy and resources. Its wealth is what we share. As we contribute to the life of this community, we affirm it and enable its participation in the larger world around us. The offering will now be generously given and gratefully received.
I invite you now, wherever it is that you are, join me in the spirit of prayer or meditation. Let's begin by breathing together. Take a deep breath in and let it out. Try relaxing the muscles in your shoulders, releasing the tension in your neck. Unclench your jaw and just breathe into this space. We begin always in thanks. Thankful for the breath in our lungs, the beauty of our earth, and the strength of this beloved community. We hold in our hearts those who care for family in ill health, those who live with grief or chronic pain, those struggling with addiction or illness, seen and unseen. We are with you. For parents and teachers and all those whose primary spiritual practice is caring for children, we are with you. Pray for our neighbors in prison, for those who are struggling to stay afloat in the midst of poverty, for migrants who are fleeing and seeking, finding new homes in our city amongst many, we are with you. We pray for all those living in harm's way. Pray for our planet and commit to work that will lead us away from the harms of climate change. We pray that wisdom, compassion, and empathy guide the leaders of our world, and as war just continues to rage on, we pray that they and we may be instruments of a just and lasting peace. Our lives are truly blessed by those who knowingly, with curiosity and courage, face their final days. Into this, our shared silence across space, I invite you now to speak aloud the names of anyone you wish to lift up into the loving support of our community. With our deepest compassion, let us hold in our hearts those named and unnamed, those remembered and those forgotten. Let it be so. Amen, and blessed be. During our ritual of lighting candles for joys and concerns, we want to continue to maintain our safety with each other. In the 2U sanctuary, you will in a moment be invited to come forward to light a candle, and as you end your time of contemplation and candle lighting, I invite you to use the hand sanitizer that's available. For those of us at the Admiral, I invite you to come forward and take a pebble from one bowl, hold it tightly in your hand, putting your energy into the stone, and then knowing your joys and sorrows to be shared by this community, let it go lightly into the other bowl. For those of us on Zoom, please join by sharing your joys and concerns in our chat window, and I will light a candle here to represent your celebrations and sorrows. all of these are shared joys, celebrations, concerns, and sorrows close to our hearts. Mary Helen, would you share our first reading, please?
Our first reading this morning is written by Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and comes from his sermon, Antidotes for Fear. What then is the cure of this morbid fear of integration? We know the cure. God help us achieve it. Love casts out fear. This truth is not without bearing on our personal anxieties. We are afraid of the superiority of other people, of failure, and of the scorn or disapproval of those whose opinions we most value. Envy, jealousy, a lack of self-confidence, a feeling of insecurity, and a haunting sense of inferiority are all rooted in fear. We do not envy people and then fear them. First, we fear them, and subsequently, we become jealous of them. Is there a cure for these annoying fears that pervert our personal lives? Yes, a deep and abiding commitment to the way of love. Perfect love casteth out fear. Hatred and bitterness can never cure the disease of fear. Only love can do that. Hatred paralyzed life. Love releases it. Hatred confuses life. Love harmonizes it. Hatred darkens life. Love illumines it.
Our second reading is actually a video this morning, during which we will hear words from Dr. King himself. King was one of the greatest orators of the 20th century, and it's a blessing to hear him speak. As the video is just an image of King, I would suggest closing your eyes or softening your eyes as you gaze off into the distance, just as we did last Sunday, and allow the way he offers his words to shower over you.
And people ask me about it all the time. So what do you mean when you tell us to love these people who are beating on us and bombing our houses and kicking our children around? What in the world do you mean when you say love such people? And I always have to stop and try to define the meaning of love in this area. And interestingly enough, Greek philosophy comes to our aid at this point. There are three words in the Greek language for love. One of them is the word eros. Now, eros is a sort of aesthetic love. The philosopher Plato talks about it a great deal in his dialogues, the yearning of the soul for the realm of the divine. It has come to us to mean a sort of romantic love, and so we all know about eros. We've experienced it. We read about it in the beauties of literature. In a sense, Edgar Allan Poe was talking about eros when he talked about his beautiful Annabel Lee with a love surrounded by the halo of eternity. In a sense, Shakespeare was talking about eros when he said, love is not love, which alters when its alteration finds or bends with the remover to remove. It is an ever-fixed mark that looks on tempest and is never shaken. It is a star to every wandering bark. You know, I can remember that because I used to quote it to my wife when we were courting. That's eros. That's eros. Then the Greek language talks about phileo, which is another level of love. It is an intimate affection between personal friends. On this level, we love because we are loved. We love people that we like. This is friendship. Then the Greek language has another word called agape. Agape is more than romantic love. Agape is more than friendship. Agape is not something affectionate. Agape is understanding, creative, redemptive goodwill for all men. It is an overflowing love which seeks nothing in return. Theologians would say that it is the love of God operating in the human heart. And when one rises to love on this level, he loves men not because he likes them, but he loves every man because God loves him. He goes on with that. And so he rises to the level of hating the system rather than the individual who is caught up in that system. He loves the person and hates the evil deed. And I think this is what Jesus meant when he said, love your enemies. And I'm happy that he didn't say like your enemies, because it's pretty difficult to like some people. It's difficult to like people bombing your home and threatening your children and kicking you about. But Jesus says love them, and love is greater than like. Love is understanding, creative, redemptive goodwill for all men.
Good morning. My name is Carl Kennedy. I'm the Director of Music here at Second Unitarian Church. My pronouns are he and him. And I am honored and blessed to present you our anthem today. This piece is very dear to me, as it was composed by a dear friend of Second Unitarian Church and former Director of Music, Amanda Thomas. It was premiered by the virtual choir at the Diverse Revolutionary Unitarian Universalist Multicultural Ministry event in 2023, which featured Sophia Bondurant, who will be joining us today as our soloist. Speaking on the origins of the song, Amanda writes, in 2015, many of our black churches in the South were being targeted and set on fire by racists. I felt so powerless and angry about it that I suffered from insomnia, anxiety, and depression. One morning I awakened, and the first part of this song was fully formed in words and music. The solo in this song is derived from Langston Hughes's poem, Still Here, and it took me literally until 2023 to share this song with the world. So please enjoy the 2U's choir and the Chicago premiere of The Fire Fuels Our Fight.
Beautiful. Thank you, choir. Love not just your friends, not just your beloveds, but your enemies. This is the message of love Dr. King offered to his people, and I try to imagine sitting in the pews listening to him proclaim this vision of love. I try to imagine what it must have been like to hear Dr. King speak of this love moments after being attacked by dogs, moments after being hosed down by police, moments after churches were burned down, moments after being kicked off a bus for sitting in the wrong seat. What must it have been like to hear that message of love? Can you imagine sitting there and listening to his beautiful preaching and hear him invite you into a love for those who are causing you harm? Can you imagine listening to one of the greatest orators of the 20th century invite you into a love so deep that it would encompass those you were just protesting against? For King, this was a deeply theological vision of love. For King, this was about expressing the love taught by Jesus of Nazareth. It was a love rooted in a radical Black interpretation of the biblical tradition. Jesus, on the cross, suffered at the hands of state repression. A colonizing force stole his life when he was only in his early 30s. Black life in the United States knew what the suffering felt like. Time and time again, the white supremacy of the United States led to the persecution, torture, detention, and destruction of Black life. Jesus' message, according to King, was to love one's enemies, to see the interconnectedness of humanity, to see God within everyone. As he said, to love one's enemy was not to submit to one's enemy, was not to acquiesce to injustice, was not to suffer in silence. No, to love one's enemy was to transform the society everyone lived in so that all would be free from injustice and dehumanization. King had a radical kind of empathy. He believed that those who were perpetuating white supremacy were doing so at their own, our own detriment. To dehumanize the other is to dehumanize the self. King was seeking collective salvation, a liberation of all people from the brutality of racism. We've already heard some of King's words, and I want to lift up more. These come from the book, The Radical King. Too often, King's words get watered down and co-opted. It's embarrassing when we see police forces, the military, multinational corporations, all quoting King on the weekend of his birthday. It's our responsibility to listen to the fullness of his message, to hear all of what it was that he was saying, knowing that it was his radicalism that got him killed. It was his collectivist vision that got him killed. It was his unapologetic Blackness that got him killed. When we reflected on King's vision of love, we do so while honoring the fullness of who he was and the fullness of what he meant by love. Agape, King says, does not begin by discriminating between worthy and unworthy people, or any qualities people possess. It begins by loving others for their sakes. It is entirely neighbor regarding concern for others, which discovers the neighbor in every man it meets. Therefore, agape makes no distinction between friend and enemy. It is directed towards both. If one loves an individual merely on account of his friendliness, he loves him for the sake of the benefits to be gained from that friendship, rather than for the friend's own sake. Consequently, the best way to assure oneself that love is disinterested is to have love for the enemy neighbor, from whom you can expect no good in return, but only hostility and persecution. Can you discover the neighbor in every person that you meet? Can you find within yourself a theology that teaches you that each person is divine and worthy of love? As Unitarian Universalists, we do not necessarily connect with the idea of seeing God within each person, but what of the idea of recognizing that what happens to each and every person in this world happens to each and every one of us? The concepts we are taught about our separateness are rooted in false ideologies and false science. We know it is indeed a fact that all of us are simply atoms vibrating at different frequencies, and that the whole universe is just atoms vibrating at different frequencies, and all of us affect one another simply by existing. When one of us suffers, there is suffering amongst all of us. When one of us practices domination over another, we are all affected by that domination. This connectedness does not mean we all have the same experiences. No, awareness of this connection makes it possible for those of us who do not believe in God to still embrace King's message of recognizing the power love has to teach us how to relate in authentic ways to one another. And so I ask again, can you find the neighbor in every person that you meet? For me, I think of this as a practice I am constantly falling short at living up to. I want to believe I have it within myself to see the sacred within everyone, even those who are causing great suffering. And I find it incredibly hard to do so at times. I think King recognized that his ask for us to embrace this practice was an aspirational ask. I do not think he was suggesting that we would all do a good job at this all of the time. In the moment of great suffering, in the moment of interpersonal attack, I do not think he expected that we would all be able to embrace this theological idea perfectly. Quite the opposite. King had immense patience with those who struggled to love their enemies. He knew that he was asking something that would feel nearly impossible to do. He was asking his Black Christian community to live as Jesus did. He was imploring people of faith to embrace a practice that would get each person closer to a vision taught by their Savior. To live as the Messiah lived was no small feat. To live as Jesus taught was to aspire to a love greater than one's finite self might be capable of doing. Recognizing it was difficult to do was not an invitation to give up trying. It seems to me that faith is often difficult. It is supposed to be hard to live into the fullness of what we are called to do. If it was easy, we would already have succeeded in doing so. To falter in our calling is to be human. King knew we were both beautiful and flawed people. I can remember well the experience of being tear-gassed here in Chicago during the 2020 uprisings. Gathered at the now removed Columbus statue, police surrounded the thousands of protesters who were rising up. These protesters were gathered to speak truth to power, to demand an end to the brutal anti-Black policing system. This practice of policing was responsible for killing yet another and another Black person. Black people and accomplices were rising up because enough was enough. Generations upon generations have been demanding an end to anti-Blackness in our country. This was one moment in a collection of moments. During this protest, the police were all dressed up in riot gear, many with masks on, and they were releasing chemicals upon those of us who were desperately trying to get a message of justice across. I was, at the time, wearing my clerical collar because I believe it is an act of faith to gather in the streets demanding a new and transformed world. Looking at the police as they tear-gassed people I loved, people I just met, people whose names I would never know, it was incredibly hard to experience a sense of love for them. How could I practice agape in the face of such overwhelming violence? How could I love my enemy as they were actively causing harm? Was I really expected to love the police who were devastating hundreds of lives, police who were part of a larger system I believe is unsalvageable? With years having passed, I have new questions about love. I wonder if it might be possible for me to see the divine within all while believing oppressive behavior is unacceptable. I wonder if I can have love within me for those in uniform while despising the systems they represent. I wonder if I might be acting out of love when I call for an end to institutions of white supremacy. Maybe that love embraces those of them, those of us who are responsible for white supremacy's perpetuation. It seems to me that King's invitation to agape is indeed an invitation to practice love of people beyond the systems that we make up. We are called to love beyond the uniforms, beyond the suits, beyond the dogs. The love we are called to embrace is a saving love that lifts up the possibility of a different way of living in our world, and I can't always do it. I try. I fall short. I wonder about you. What of the idea that those who perpetuate violence are dehumanizing themselves? Part of King's vision of love is the idea that white folks who act with racist impunity are not only causing harm to Black people, these same white people are dehumanizing themselves. Whiteness seeks to protect itself by demonizing Blackness, and in the process, those of us who are white end up losing our humanity because we are trying to take away the humanity of others. It is dehumanizing to the oppressor to cultivate life while taking the lives of others. It is dehumanizing to the oppressor to perpetuate violence while claiming safety. I wonder if King's vision of love included a profound sense of empathy. Was he having compassion for the dehumanization white folks were experiencing when devastating Black communities? Was he, as Jesus proclaimed, forgiving them, forgiving us, for we know not what we do? This is part of the message I hear in King's vision of love. I'm called to turn towards those I have wronged, to turn to those who have wronged me, offer forgiveness and love, for indeed we do not know what we do. We break apart from our collective humanity because we forget how connected we truly are. We turn away from love because we live in fear of what it might mean to truly love one another. This empathy and compassion King offers does not create any version of docility, however. Recognizing that oppressors are being dehumanized by their behavior does not mean things get to keep going the way that they have been going. Quite the opposite. As we heard our choir sing this morning, somebody's hurting my people, and it's gone on far too long, and we won't be silent anymore. King's vision of love is an active love, a love that calls for collective action, in particular action by Black people for Black people. And I wonder where you might have found this kind of love in your life. Where and when have you found a profound connection to a love that called you to act for justice amongst all of humanity? I find myself grateful for the ministry of the diverse and revolutionary Unitarian Universalist Multicultural Ministries and Black Lives of Unitarian Universalism, who celebrate and lift up BIPOC spaces within our faith to ensure a fuller sense and a fuller experience of love within our faith. While I may have struggled to love the police who were tear-gassing protesters, I have constantly found love in the street. I learned about King's vision of love by joining with protesters in the early 2000s, demanding an end to the war in Iraq. King spoke not only about anti-Black racism, he also spoke about the racist violence of the war machine that was killing millions in Vietnam. His vision of love included an end to genocidal wars. I found that love when I locked arms with protesters outside the School of the Americas, a military training school responsible for devastating violence in Latin America. Most recently, I felt that love with anti-Zionist Jews right here in our own city, demanding an end to Israel's attacks on Gaza. We cannot talk about King's love without talking about what he called the three evils: militarism, racism, and poverty. Loving our enemies means loving the hell out of this world. Loving the hell out of this world as Unitarian Universalists means dismantling all the hells that exist on this earth. War is hell. Racism is hell. Poverty is hell. All of these hells are manifested by human actions. And through a vision of love that encompasses all, we can change or abolish the systems that make these hells real. My final question to you this morning is this: what will you do to live into King's vision of love? We each have a role. Maybe you're not going to find the love in the streets as I do, but maybe you will find it in the ballot box. Maybe you won't find this love in the ballot box, but you'll find it in acts of service. Maybe you won't find this love in acts of service, but you will find it by engaging loved ones in hard conversations. Wherever you find this love, it is about practice. It won't be perfect. Maybe you, like me, will struggle to love your enemies. Maybe you, like me, will find yourself struggling to live into King's call. When you see yourself struggling, maybe you'll lean on your faith. Maybe you'll turn inward. Maybe you'll turn to another. And remind yourself that we are getting closer. We are trying harder. We are working collectively and doing all we can to embrace King's vision of love. Let it be so, and amen.
Please rise in body or spirit as we sing our final hymn, I Wish I Knew How, number 151 in your gray hymnal or words on the screen. I knew how it would feel to be free. I wish I could break all these chains. say all the things I could say. Say 'em loud, say 'em clear, for the whole world to hear. Say 'em loud, say 'em clear, for the whole world to hear. I wish I could share all the love in my heart. Remove all the chains that still keep us apart. I wish I could know what it means to be me. Then you'll see and agree everyone should be free. Then you'll see and agree everyone should be free. I wish I could give all I'm longing to give. I wish I could live like I'm longing to live. I wish I could do all the things I can do. Though I'm way overdue, I'll be starting anew. Though I'm way overdue, I'll be starting anew. I wish I could be like a star in the sky. How sweet it would be if I found I could fly. I'd soar to the sun and look down at the sea. Then I'll sing 'cause I know how it feels to be free. Then I'll sing 'cause I know how I feels to be free.
Hearts or clasp hands with those you're sharing your life with during these pandemic times, and hear these words from Dr. King. Power without love is reckless and abusive, and love without power is sentimental and anemic. Power at its best is love implementing the demands of justice, and justice at its best is power correcting everything that stands against love. May we know the power of love in all that we do. May we embrace a practice of love that teaches us to take risks, teaches us to embrace change, teaches us to live into the fullest of who we are called to be. Go in peace, beloveds.